And we're live. 16 minutes late. It's okay. We're having a great in-depth conversation about training and people and training people. I'm going to move Noah because he went on silent. He probably is. I'll bring him back in when he comes in. And just trying to build training structures. Last week, we talked about the competitive environment and training and CrossFit and continuing doing what you're doing, whether that's you going and competing through the season, finding other competitions to compete in, and just moving forward. The one thing I would like to touch on, and I'm not going to be as aggressive as, I don't know, Josh, or what's his name? Wooly, and the battle between, who's the announcer guy? I don't even know right now.
Sean Woodland.
No, the other guy, Chase Ingram.
Chase.
Yeah, the whole like little battle on the internet. Look at,
I'm out of the loop.
It's
I
okay.
don't know what you're talking about.
Chase said to get the F out of our community if you're going to pull people away from the open and not support it. And then on their Get With The Program, they talked about like where he's coming from and everything else. And it's the whole thing, like within that little ecosystem of the CrossFit space. And at the end of the day, I think all views are correct. Just want to add a caveat of like, I think generally people should be a little more positive about a lot of things. And we too often are misunderstanding what small companies, because don't get it wrong, CrossFit is a small company, are struggling with to do: man hours, power, finances, everything. We have no understanding. And especially like if you have a job where you work for somebody and you're not the business owner, and we touched on this last week a little bit, is like you don't know all the things that are going into that opportunity. Like, you know, in a gym space, I don't think members think about all the little things that go into just having a place to work out for that hour every day. And all of these gyms all over the world, and what gym owners are struggling with to keep things going, build opportunity, a lifestyle, just like you have at your job when you go there and you work. So there's a lot there, but keeping in mind that staying positive on things that you're doing, activities that you're doing, whether that's High Rocks or running or CrossFit or anything else, just be positive about it. There's a lot of things to be negative and hate on, which leads into like, if you have enough negativity, you will be like, hey, I don't want to do this thing anymore. It's not fun for me. Or you'll go to something else and have similar issues just because you're not positive about it, which can like start us with our conversation about training in general. And now that a lot of people within our space, or CrossFit space, don't have something as a quote unquote goal to shoot for anymore, because now it's going to be the 1% for 18 to 34-year-olds. And then everyone else is the 2% to get into semifinals. And that can be very disheartening because people wanted to do quarterfinals. I think the place to start is saying that the quarterfinals was a made up system that CrossFit came in and made part of the rules. And all of this stuff is made up. Like when we really think about it, someone's like, hey, we're going to do this thing and then we're going to set rules to it. And then we're going to decide that you're going to sign up online and do these events. And then we're going to rank you. And it's all just made up by human beings who think it's fun. And you're participating in that thing because it is fun and it's notable, but it's all made up. So like that quarterfinal thing that you made a goal, it's all made up. It's been created by somebody else. You bought into it and decided that, hey, this is really what I want to do. Just same thing with like a marathon. And then you buy into the fact that someone can run a marathon sub 3 hours. And then you're like, I want to do that too. And so you bought into their dream and their aspiration and the event that they did. And then they run that and then you train and you do it. So by saying all that, you can make up your own goal, your own driver to get you into the gym and training every day. You can look at the things you want to achieve and just map out a course to do those things. And that's what we'll talk about, and what we're here to do is help people to push their fitness, their human potential, their capacity, reach out to do something. If you've ever heard of a Misogi, this is like, I think in the next couple of years, this will be like a hot topic for people to say, like, I'm searching my Misogi. A Misogi is a Japanese tradition where you go stand on a waterfall, it rains on you, the water, and it releases you. And it's a very experiential thing. There's a couple companies that run by this idea of doing a Misogi, and a Misogi for like a fitnesser would be something that they've never done before, that is challenging, takes them outside of their realm. That doesn't mean that they don't still continue to train. So let's say you do CrossFit every day and you're like, I want to learn how to rock climb. And then I want to take that rock climbing and I want to go to, let's say Half Dome and do some rock climbing at Half Dome. Like that would be a Masogi for somebody. You guys spend some time doing something, learn something new. You have to have a base of fitness and exercise to back all that up. Build a plan, an action plan, grow into that goal that you've created. That is, like I said in the beginning, a made up thing. Cause you made that up. You said, I want to learn rock climbing and I want to go climb Half Dome. You just made that up. You created that goal for yourself and that end state. And some people in the Japanese culture would call that a Masogi. So with that said, I think it's important to cover a few styles of training. And the first would be like some 80-20 training, which was, we labeled this. And if you're not familiar with 80-20, it's more popular in running. And the 80-20 is where 80% of your work is really easy, conversational pace, and the 20% is high intensity. And I think you can do that in CrossFit. And I think it's super valuable. And I would like to just talk about examples and styles of 80-20 training. And if the 4 people watching us have any comments, questions, or suggestions, go ahead and put them in the chat. And as always, like and subscribe and hit the notification bell. So examples of training, easy training. How many of you guys have athletes that could benefit for doing more easy training? Tyler's going to talk.
All of them.
Tyler, go.
All of them. All right. Give us some examples. Don't say any names. Just give us some examples of what that would look like.
I just think, I think everybody that starts with CrossFit, they all come in and, they hear the 4 time or as many reps or rounds as possible. And so their initial expectation and mindset in CrossFit is as fast as possible the whole time. And, for a beginner, anything's going to work for you. But as time goes on, your body just can't handle that type of output. Plus there's the whole point of the 80-20 is that you're building your base and your intensity together so that, but when we start CrossFit, it's just all intensity. There's no base in there. So I say all of them just because I don't know a person that wouldn't benefit from more slower training.
All right. So let's take a workout, easy workout where Heather and I did a different version of this. But let's say we're going 3 rounds, 20 dumbbell snatches, 20 toes to bar. And I had to do it at 70 today, but if you saw that workout and you were a class goer and you're now their one-on-one coach and you're going to change that workout and manipulate it to make it more easy for them. Let's go some variations of that workout that can make it easier. This will help people have tangible, actionable
depending
items.
on what their like capacity is, maybe that's what 60 toes to bar, 60 dumbbell snatch. You either can give them 6 rounds of 10-10-10. You can do the 20 and 20 and then give them a 2 or 3 minute or 1 or 2 minute
just
rest.
give us one example. Okay. That's 2 examples.
Okay,
elaborate on your 6 rounds.
So like you can give them 6 rounds of 1-1-1 because 10-10-10, sorry. So that it allows them to like break up the volume a little bit more and their demand a little bit more so that they can actually like keep moving like between movements instead of just like getting stuck in like the bigger chunk of work.
Sick. That's a good way. You could bring down the intensity. And in that example, the intensity is the larger density set, right? Doing 20 unbroken doesn't allow, like if you can't do the 20 unbroken, well, obviously you need to bring it down. Like Tyler said, build out the volume of the work. So by doing the 10-10-10, you're hoping that they go unbroken on the 10, gives them a little bit of break because they're going back and forth from the movements rather than staying in that one singular movement and accumulating that fatigue and then maybe going to failure.
Yeah.
How else could we do it? How else could we slow it down more?
Well, I was going to say you could still take that and then you can even like dilute it a little bit more by adding rest in there. So you can have your 6 rounds of your 10 and 10, but maybe you rest 30 seconds between the dumbbell snatch and 30 seconds between the toes to bar. Or maybe you do the dumbbell snatch and toes to bar and then you rest a minute. Like, so you take that 30 seconds and you just put the minute on the back end potentially so that they can actually get a little bit of recovery before they go in and are asked to do a bigger set for them.
And if you do that often enough, like what does that give to the person? Like what are other problems that are getting solved?
Well, they're able to just get more volume accumulation first, right? Because maybe they don't have a 60 toe to bar in a workout. They haven't accumulated enough reps to do that yet. So it's bringing the intensity down so that they can actually work on gathering those repetitions and building that volume out for themselves without adding so much intensity to it that they just explode.
And when we look at the total work, because you said volume like 100 times already.
So
When we look at the total work, someone doing it 4 times at 2020, what are the benefits between those two? And anyone can answer. Heather's doing a great job. So if I do it for 3 rounds, unbroken 2020, and I do it relatively fast, and I do let's say the 6 rounds of 10 and 10 with a 30-second rest between each movement. And the first example takes me 6 minutes to do, and the second example takes me 16 minutes to do. What is the trade-off, like physical trade-off from those two individuals? What are the pros and cons, plus and minuses? What does someone get? What don't they get?
I'd say they get the opportunity to work on recovery. So ideally, within those rest periods, they're able to regain some composure, focus on controlling their breathing mechanics, calming their mind before going into that next set with those 30-second rest periods. So that's one factor. By prolonging the time domain, you could argue that it's becoming more of an aerobic experience rather than more of an anaerobic experience, because the shorter time domains, whether or not it's the same volume, and going from the short time domain to the long time domain, it's still requiring the aerobic system to clear waste product, recover the body, bring in more oxygen along with those breathing mechanics, like I said, so that you're becoming more aerobic within those movements. So the heart rate and the experience may be more undulated, hypothetically going really high during the 10, back down in the rest, higher in the 10, back down in the rest. But that is stimulating the body to become more fit within that movement combination of really, really dense hinging, right? Dumbbell snatch and toe to bar specifically. The other end of it, aside from energy systems, it allows you to work on how you're moving. So within those 10s, say on the toe to bar, maybe you always do a straight leg toe to bar, really long, slow kip, a lot of press down with the shoulder. Maybe you want to work on cycle speed so you can do your 10 toe to bar a little faster. Maybe you can muscle snatch the 10 dumbbell snatches, in a row on all of them, moving the dumbbell through a faster rate of travel with the 10s. But at the 20, you may have to pause overhead for 2 seconds, every 4 or 5 reps. So you're then able to train the quality of movement efficiency, speed, and different techniques within the movements as well. So by going longer in a less dense setting, you potentially could actually work faster when you're working, but while still stimulating the aerobic system for recovery.
Great.
Yeah.
And the best part is both of those training, like whether you do it 3 rounds of 2020 and you do 6 rounds of 10 and 10 with the rest, you're going to, at the end of the day, assuming you're using the same load, you're going to get the same mechanical tension. So you're going to get the same muscular development. You're going to stimulate mTOR the same way if you're going to look on like a biological level. Then you're also going to get the total training volume as the same person who did 20 and 20. So you're getting the same volume. And often muscle contraction and volume and mechanical tension is what we're looking for physical change and adaptations of the muscles. So like both of those training sessions on a baseline level of just muscular development, you're getting the same thing out of it. And there's tons of research studies now that prove that. It's very similar, like running volume and running. You can run volume fast and you're still going to get really fast. And that's a bigger output, like Harley was saying, in the bioenergetics of the energy system. But you could still run the same volume and get the same benefit of that running until you start running faster. And going faster or doing 3 rounds of 20 and 20 is really just a test of your capacity, because the way that Heather explained it and Harley explained it, you're going to take yourself, and the end state is going to be that 3 rounds of 20 and 20. That's what you want to do. And then let's say you do that workout, but you do it quote unquote slow, or you got to break things up and all this other stuff. I would argue personally, watching that and being an affiliate for a really long time, you haven't earned the right to do that 3 rounds of 20 and 20. I should see you go 20 unbroken, 20 unbroken, 20 unbroken, 20 unbroken, 20 unbroken, 20
Because if you
unbroken.
do the 3 rounds of 20 and 20, it still takes you 16 minutes. It's like, well,
Well,
what's
yeah.
the point, right?
You
It's
could
like
have done,
haven't-
yeah,
right.
you could have stopped and been like, hey, this is kind of inappropriate for me today. This is high intensity, you know, and again, it's 80-20. So the intensity of the 20% of your training, you're going to want to push yourself. So if that's just that day, that's just that day. But if you're like looking at it and you're a class goer and you don't have a one-on-one coach, or you have some of us, you're going to look at that workout and go, okay, well, how can I manipulate this workout to get the same volume, get some of the similar characteristics of that fitness that you guys talked about, and then work on skills and positioning like Harley talked about, and break it down more into something better and more better in the context and more manageable, because both are good workouts.
Well, and I think that's like
So-
the important thing to understand, I think, for a lot of the class goers is like they feel like if they're not doing the 20 and 20, they're not doing it correctly. And maybe they already that's written for like more of an anabolic or the 20, right, of your week. But like maybe you already had 2 sessions where you hit those 20. And so now it's like, okay, well, now I'm adding this to my 3rd or my 4th or my 5th high intensity session for the week. And it's like, you maybe could do that, but maybe it's actually a smart idea for you to do the 6 rounds of the 10, 10, 10 and bring down the intensity. And you're still, to Todd's point, you're getting the mechanical tension, you're getting all the volume accumulation and all of that happening. But like, you're actually bringing that intensity down for you for the day so that you're actually not wrecking yourself every single day, but you're still getting the same workout that everybody in the class just did.
So my only argument to that, and this is just because thinking about the psychology of the group class setting, right? Like no one wants to fucking do something different and go and do their 6x10
It's better for you.
while everyone's doing 3x20.
God, I want to do the easier session.
No, I just
Easier because you can do the 20 and 20.
Or the lower intensity. I should say it that
It's
way.
not easy. So
I shouldn't
okay,
even
hold
say
on.
easy.
We'll get back to
Lower
Harley because
intensity.
this is really good. Just
well,
real
can
quick, because I
just
want to
elaborate?
correct. Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I wanted to
I
correct.
was-
It's not an easier session.
Right.
Just
I
FYI.
just
It's easier
changed
for
it.
you
Yes,
because
yes,
you can
yes.
do the 3
Sure.
rounds of 20 and 20
The
unbroken.
less intense session. Let's put
It's not even that. They both can be intense. Go ahead, Harley.
So
Hey,
I
wow.
would just keep the same structure of 3x20, right? Instead of going 6x10, but utilizing cluster sets. And I would be recommending to the clients in the room, like, oh, to get to 20, maybe that's 8-7-5 for you. Maybe that's 4 sets of 5 with a 20-second rest. And we can allocate, a more structured system for the same format and break up the density with those cluster sets rather than just changing it to 6x10s, and still give them, again, a more appropriate dose of intensity for the day with the same total volume. And then, of course, intensity, we can get into loading as well. But if we're trying to keep them at that specific loading that's appropriate for them for that day, then, of course, like the cluster sets or even prolonging that rest period a little bit may help them. But
yeah, we were talking about WOD science before we got on, but there's, the
your
research.
favorite, it's your favorite, right?
He's my favorite. No, it's more my favorite because they do look at the studies within CrossFit quite often, and that's like what he likes doing. So he brings up stuff, but like they did look at the non-responders, and we talked about this for training, and like the non-responders actually just didn't get enough volume.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're trying to solve is there are non-responders, not quote unquote non-responders, which that term is like a decade old. And now there's new research coming out that, well, they just redid the test and all they did was apply more volume to the non-responders. And guess what happened? They got the same growth as the people who are easy responders. So like, it's more important sometimes about the volume that people are doing in an appropriate way. Cause like to Harley's point, or the intensity thing, if you push somebody too hard with volume, what's going to happen? Typically they're going to get hurt. Yeah. Cause they're not moving well. They're losing their minds and all of the things that Harley hit on by breaking things up and doing clusters and everything else. It's going to keep them safer in a training session and allow them the opportunity to get more and get the actual volume. And then we can talk about loading parameters because you do need mechanical tension. So there's a lot there, but I think it's a better approach. So now I guess the question is like, well, how do we get people to be okay with in a class setting, just changing it up.
Well, is it changing it up or just creating a structure that's right for them? So like
That's a good way to put it. I like it.
you need to put up guardrails. And I think in a class setting, ideally the coach is trying to articulate that at the whiteboard and like do that as a part of their job, right? We've joked about intended stimulus before, but really like I think that's all the guardrails are doing is like it's preserving what is right for them for the day. And that's what people coin intended stimulus, right? Like what we expect the workout to give them, right? But it's like, but everyone in the room needs a little tweak or something maybe a little bit different to achieve that expectation. So yeah, speaking of volume, I had a guy come in the gym last week and he asked about like what is CrossFit. He's like, I see all these CrossFit athletes, they're just so jacked, you know, they're savages. And I was yeah, that's what I said. I was like, yeah, for people like there are fit people in this room, right? Like doing this class right now. But if the people you're probably seeing are the pinnacle of the sport and the people who are competing and pursuing it at the highest level, they're doing, you know, in not just 1 hour a day, they're doing like 5 hours a day, 3 hours a day.
I also want to point this out though, because Marissa's right. Who's online right now? Put a wave in the chat. That is a valuable
volume.
I did. Yeah. And that same thing with bodybuilders. You could go into a global gym and the most jacked people I guarantee are doing 2 to 3 times the volume that lesser jacked people are doing.
And 2 to 3 times the steroids.
Oh,
maybe
no.
not.
Here we go.
Let's talk about the normies. Okay. The normies, people like me coming to the gym looking good. Okay. Those
The
people.
ones that they throw in the Olympics. Is
Yeah. The normies, the NARPs. No, but like, God, you had to bring the steroids in. No, but so
what's up?
Heather said anabolic in the middle of hers.
I did.
Oh, Nate, you should be working. You trying not to get eclipsed? Oh man, sorry, Harley.
Heather tried to say anaerobic, but she said anabolic in the middle of her spiel.
Oh, I
Yeah.
didn't.
You did, I promise.
Either way. So
We'll have to run that back.
back to what I was going to say though. Like, okay, and we all know this, and anybody listening, you go into your local CrossFit gym and tell me, and then go into like your local, let's say, because we got one right here, Planet Fitness. The bodies in a local CrossFit gym generally look much better than the people in the. I don't want to hate on people who go Planet Fitness because they're trying and they're doing good works, but the point of it is the adaptations that this training program create aesthetically are very different. And we know that. We've known that for years. You know, you look at a runner, hardcore runner who's doing, let's say, moderate volume running, they're going to look very different than somebody who's doing moderate volume back squatting. It just depends on what you like, you know? But the point of that is like Harley's saying to this individual who came into the gym, they're looking at the pinnacle of the sport. And could that person get those body aesthetics that a games athlete has? Certainly. Do they have to do the intensity that that person's doing? No. And that's the point of the 80-20. You can do functional movements executed at regular intensity or zone 2 intensity. The problem with that is you'd have to do it way longer, right? So like my original analogy of doing it in 6 minutes versus 16 minutes. Yeah. Okay. You might have to expand that time to get the volume in, and that's going to cause you to doing work longer and, you know, having a training session that could or should take you 45 minutes turn into 90 minutes. But if you're trying to accumulate that volume and you want that visual aesthetics, is that such a bad thing to go for 90 minutes in training to get that work?
No. And the reality is you're going to end up probably expending a lot more caloric energy along the ways, right? Like you're going to burn so many calories going 90 minutes versus like 20 just through being in a steady state movement for a longer period of time.
Yeah.
So you're going to achieve aesthetics in a very different mode and a different experience, you know, intensity wise. It's not going to hurt nearly as much, but you're going to get a lot more out of it.
Yeah.
Without beating yourself up.
Yeah. That's also a good point too. All right. So what are some other like ways of training that you could look at? And I'll put them in our title once we go through them, that could help you like change and manipulate what you're doing to solve a problem that people have, whether that's, you know, like injury solution or like, because the biggest solve for people who are like getting beat up by intensity, getting burnt out, don't want to train, the 80-20 approach applied and using RPE and slowing things down and talking to your coach and taking a workout and pulling it out, like expanding it out to go longer, whether that's like Heather said, putting in rest or expanding the rounds, you know, because you could do 10 rounds of 6 and 6 of that stuff and get the same, you know, or even 20 rounds of 3 and 3. And that would take you longer and it would help with the density of the sets and everything else. And there's lots of ways to take that one workout and make like 6 or 7 different workouts that you could come back to and repeat each week if you really wanted to. That would help you grow and build into the capacity, knowing that the end state that we want is the 3 rounds of 20 and 20. But do we really need to do 3 rounds of 20 and 20 at the end of the day, except for the sole purpose of the intensity factor? You know what I mean? Like if your goal is to do like global flexion extension of the dumbbell snatch and then global flexion and extension of the toes to bar, obviously they're driven differently, like posteriorly versus anterior and the toe to bar and everything else. And you get into all that stuff. But like that large range of motion for both of those pairings is your goal to do that. Maybe, maybe not, but you could do the same thing with, you know, let's say something bicep curls, or that's stupid, bench press and tricep extensions. You know, you could do the same thing of 3 rounds of 20 and 20 and then pull that out, even though the movement selection is different, decrease the intensity, and you would still get the adaptation of bench pressing and the triceps. So like, what are other ways or other training that you could apply to CrossFit or coming in a class to keep you not burnt out, to slow things down a little bit and get the value of CrossFit without doing intensity? Now, understand you still got to do intensity. That's why I like the 80-20, because if you train 5 days a week, you know, 1 to 2 of those days, you have to go hard. So you can't avoid it, but you could slow a lot down and like save yourself. Anybody got any other training ways? Tyler speaks.
So something that I do is like like going back to like the 3 sets of 20 or 3 rounds of 20, like if they can do it, but they need it to slow down, like I'll write like mandatory, like do 10 reps, 3 deep breaths, 10 reps. So kind of like to Harley's point of like a cluster. But it's like making them have to stop, even though that they could do the unbroken sets, just to make it easier for them. Another thing, especially when it comes to, well, not especially, but when it comes to lifting, is lightening up the load, but adding tempo into things so that it's not so hard on their joints, so that they can still get resistance training in without it breaking them down.
That's a good one. What are, because it made me think of what are some key like elements of training that you need to keep in your training, whether you're like, because we're like off of like competing in CrossFit. You're using CrossFit as a method and modality to keep yourself fit and healthy for a long period of time. What are some key characteristics in training? So like, okay, you could bring down the intensity and do 80-20 and expand your thought process and your timeline, if you have one, to like, I'm going to do this for the next 20 years. Okay. So like doing 80-20 is going to get you a lot of really good fitness over those 20 years of doing CrossFit style compound multi-joint functional movements. Like, what does that look like to you guys? Well, what advice would you give somebody to just be like, hey, these are the 2 things you got to keep doing, you know, regardless of other stuff other avenues you go down, other things that you do for training?
So when I think about someone just trying to be healthy, have longevity, but still wants to utilize the CrossFit specific elements. So the things that stand out to me, obviously metabolic conditioning is, aside from nutrition, is the base of the pyramid. And then we go gymnastics and weightlifting. Gymnastics, I think, is overlooked from a quality standpoint a lot. We only talk about like, what is the volume of toe to bar I can do in a 10-minute AMRAP, right? Or in a 10-minute CrossFit workout. What's the max set of chest to bars I can do, etc. But we hardly ever look at it through a qualitative lens. So the slowing down and thinking about how you're organizing shapes in gymnastics, coordinating your system, is both great for strength, through isometrics, but also neurological coordination and skill development. So that is something I think that from a health longevity standpoint would translate to maintaining a good ability level in CrossFit from the variety of things you're asked to do, but while pulling back the systemic intensity. You could still put a ton of effort into it. You could accumulate a good amount of work in a given session, but it's probably not going to leave you beat up and worn down. The other thing is in the weightlifting side of things, we often are talking about like light repeatable weights, thinking like Grace, Isabel, Fran, something that's really high turnover, cycling a barbell, etc. But thinking about how, or we're on the opposite end of the spectrum, thinking about like maximum lifts, building to a heavy clean and jerk for the day or something like that. But thinking about that like 65 to 75% range, staying that sweet spot where you're able to control and coordinate how you're moving the barbell, working on the technical side and being the best weightlifter in the gym quality wise, rather than just how much is on the bar. I think those two sort of perspectives of pulling back the intensity, whether it be speed of gymnastics or load on the bar or speed of the bar, and focusing on actual positional development is going to help you develop longevity and just be a better CrossFitter overall. Even if you aren't trying to be the most competitive person, you can still be the best mover in the room.
Anybody else? Or some things? I mean, that was a good one with the gymnastics. I mean, there's a whole, like I gave Heather's book, Overcoming Gravity. It's a whole book. It's like this thick on gymnastics. And like all the training is gymnastics training. And like in the book, they'll talk about how you will create a huge body aesthetic. And for years and years and years prior to, I mean, they lift weights now, but like male gymnasts, because of the isometric holds, the time, the mechanical tension, I mean, it's hard. Like why is there so many programs that are like, get your first pull up?
Yeah.
Like if that's not an indicator that doing pull-ups is very valuable for you, that there's huge programs and almost a whole industry on selling you a program on how to get your first pull-up, regardless, like it's a pinnacle. Like people I want to do my first pull-up. It's like a goal that they could achieve, but it is challenging. It's so challenging that there's so many different programs to get your first pull-up. So in that same line of thinking, once you go, that's really interesting that pull-ups are really tough. Maybe I should keep those in my repertoire, amongst other things, like going inverted and doing handstand holds with heels on the wall. You don't have to do hard gymnastics, to Harley's point, like bottom of the dip holds, top of the dip holds. Like you don't need to do anything dynamic, and you can get a ton of results and adaptations and like neurological connection for health and longevity.
Well, I think one of the things that I was thinking of when Harley was talking was like, I feel like CrossFit is like one of the few spaces where, and I think this just goes back to like old school CrossFit and intensity and all of that, but everything was like, if you could do it, just do it. The handstand push up, the pull up, the muscle up, just fling your body up there, get it, do it, whatever. And I know CrossFit's kind of has evolved a lot in the last, decade and we're not doing that and coaching it that way anymore. But it's like a lot of other sports, like I know you did martial arts, Todd, but it's like you had to like earn to be able to like do a kipping pull up. You had to be able to earn to do a muscle up. It's not just like, okay, I'm just going to just do a bunch of things and then try to get the rep, right? It's like you had to do the positional work. You had to do the boring things. You had to like do the hangs and the holds and the pressing and things like that.
I just said, because you said the boring things, I was just trying.
I just think that's what people perceive it as. They're like, I don't want to do this.
I guess that's stupid. The point of like trying to persuade
and
people.
It's like you haven't really earned the right to do a muscle up yet. You haven't earned the right yet to do a handstand push-up or whatever the flashy thing that people in CrossFit are doing, because they haven't put in the work to do that. And it's more so coming from a safety, I think, perspective, but also like as just in development in general. I think that's what I like to Harley's point, that's what I was like kind of thinking about. But
what's boring?
Well, I'm just saying that's what people perceive it as.
Yeah.
Right?
What do they perceive as boring?
Well, just like the skill work, like the holding, the accessory work, I don't know.
As Tristan said it on a previous call.
I may begin to with 3 to 4 sets of 20 to 30 GHD hip extensions into 23 ab mat sit-ups and rest as needed if the athlete capacity is low. Let's see, what else they say. He's got his son right now. Something I like to break down in a global movement pattern. Oh yeah. Yeah, see, that's okay. That could be boring, but what did Tristan say? Yeah, doing hip extensions, GHGs could be boring, but that's not boring. But go ahead.
I don't think that's what he was saying. I think he was answering your question. What are some other ways you can do hinging or complementary movement patterns in a lower effort setting that is appropriate?
Sick.
I don't think he was saying that's boring, but Tristan, he said it this way on a previous call. He just said, eat your veggies. You know, no one wants to eat your veggies whenever they want to do the 30 muscle ups for time, but they don't want to do the ring dip holds and muscle up turnovers and strict or weighted ring dips.
Well, what if you have somebody who like doesn't even care about that stuff, you know, but they like the CrossFit training program? Because like you look at High Rocks, people who do High Rocks, I would argue do CrossFit Endurance or CrossFit Light from the back in the day style with like a lot of people did. But what like that'll create some serious fitness adaptations that'll keep you fit and healthy. And they could care less if they ever fucking do a ring muscle up. Like, what is the value there? Like, because I know there's value there. But what do you guys think the value is?
The value is inclusivity and low barrier to entry without intimidation.
No,
I think
the ring muscle up. Like,
I misunderstood your question.
Yeah, why would we spend time eating our veggies? You know what I mean? If you're never going to do a ring muscle up, mother effers, MFers, MFers. You know, I think that's what I was like trying to get at to who people are listening and understanding. Like, yeah, we are super biased in a CrossFit program because CrossFit works. It's like we talked about last week, and I've been talking about every freaking day in class that F45 added squat racks to their training program because there are things that work very, very well, and you cannot argue with them. No matter how much you want to and how much bias you want to put in. Like, so like the point of our bias with the ring muscle up thing is like, okay, well, let's break it down. Push up, it's involved in a ring muscle up. Pull up, it's involved in a ring muscle up. Hanging from an implement and pulling yourself up at high velocity through, let's just say we're doing a kipping ring muscle up because most people can't do strict. You're applying some hip total body coordination. You're creating tension through the lats, through the biceps, through the posterior delt. Like from the tips of your fingers to the tips of your toes, you're engaging neurologically so much. Like you've seen people do ring muscle ups that like their feet, my wife, feet fly all over the place. She like, we've been working on them a ton. And she's like, I don't really know what's happening basically from the time that I pull to over the rings. I can't like feel my body. I don't know what's going on. And that's okay. But you can see right there that there's a neurological deficiency in the thing because we're asking her to do a very high, hard, extreme movement. So I just say that my bias is that like, yeah, eating your vegetables and you can get great fitness out of that. You could go into the gym and do pull-ups, bicep curls, tricep extensions, low ring dips, and you could get a huge body aesthetic that is phenomenal. But what you're missing out on is that neurological connection and moving your body through space and being more athletic with the ring muscle. If we're going to use
correct. I mean, I gave a really long spiel about how it's, you know, the second tier above metabolic conditioning for a reason, and that it's neurological, it's coordination, it's all of the things that you're just about to reiterate. That's what I had just said. So that's why I was confused by your question. It's like I spent like a minute saying that.
Yeah, I just meant in the form of like how do we get it across to people? Like, even though you might, because I think a lot of people might be trying to pull back from a CrossFit style program because of most of the people that listen to us are competitive CrossFitters. But I'm making an argument for not doing that. Maybe you bring it down a notch, but these movements have value.
I agree. I think that that's why for people who want to be fit, athletic, etc., and have longevity in their fitness, focusing on the qualitative aspects of how they're moving through space and time matters. And I think that Olympic lifts have value for the same reason that you're saying that gymnastics has value. That's why I use those as my two examples, because you're coordinating your whole system. You're creating a sequential movement through space and time, either you just using your own body weight as the resistance or, external load as resistance. Regardless, it's a resistance-based exercise that requires you to coordinate basically head to toe. And there's a lot of value in that.
Let's see what Tristan said. We should get him. I'll send him a link. The value of physical capacity through different modalities is always n equals 1 question. And that's true. So that's the other thing. And anybody that knows us by this point, and I've gone back and forth because I love the value of group class and like CrossFit class, any class really. Like it gets lit. Like even today we had almost 10 people in here doing one-on-one training. Mm-hmm. And I was joking about the glory days, the good old days of Sundown, where like we're in it, where we got a bunch of, I want some of these people to get more hyped up because they're kind of flat. Some people like need to liven up a little bit, shake it up, like get excited. You're out here just I gotta work out and I'm a workout robot. Some people, not everyone. But I would really enjoy them walking around like a robot as a good joke because they are a workout robot. It would be funny. Cody's a good laugh. He pokes fun, but that atmosphere, that environment, that's why people like group class. There's a lot of that you cannot replace by good training. Doesn't matter, right? But to Tristan, what Tristan's saying is that it is n equals 1. As far as like the different modalities and what you want to do and what you want to achieve. But I think the value that we have as CrossFit coaches, if that's what we're going to like say, or strength and conditioning coaches within mixed modal setting, which it has huge value that's greater than some of these high rocks coaches or gymnastics coaches or just strength coaches, is that we have had now all these years of experience. Like let's say the CrossFit as a competition completely goes away, or it becomes something small like surfing, or surfing's not that small, but like, rollerblading died. So there's a good example, but like BMX, jumping or bicycle jumping or skateboarding, like street skating, like how many kids you see doing 50-50s on a curb nowadays, out in the streets? Like it's not really happening. So a smaller extreme sport, like that's what it'll probably turn into. But with that, it's allowed us the opportunity to work with some of the most talented, fit individuals in the world who are very athletic, are getting these driving factors of what we're talking about and changing their physical state and biology to a degree that is unheard of, that is only preserved in the early years for Olympic athletes or these high level people that you see, where I could take, and I made this joke the other day. I shouldn't make this joke and I probably shouldn't say it out loud, but I was telling one of our people that they're the average mom as a joke of like, let's raise the bar of what the average mom is. And I was joking because I wanted them a 3-rep, 135 pounds for a power clean. I was like, come on, you got to be the average mom. Let's go. Most average moms can't power clean 135 for 3 reps. But that was like the impetus of the mindset that I wanted out of the people, so they could build and grow their health and fitness and become one of these, either like super soldiers or gladiators or whatever you want to call it, to push themselves into this situation. And like, we have had this unique opportunity to work with those people who've done it, to take it and apply it to everyone, every human being on earth. And I think that's the biggest thing. And Greg, I now sound like a Greg Glassman disciple because I've seen it firsthand that we do have this really potent thing that allows us, especially the high level good coaches in the space. And there's other training organizations that can do this, and then help other coaches do this as well, because you can take it and push somebody so far down and get them better through like the n equals 1 one-on-one individual design. And then there's ways to manipulate it through a group setting and a CrossFit gym, but it's just so valuable beyond any other training program. And if you get a really good coach, they can do that for you. They can take these things and these elements like weightlifting, apply them safely and appropriately, find new goals for you, put you in a position where like, I want to do X, Y, Z. I want to be an average mom, as the joke in our gym now. And then push yourself to that and stay motivated every day and get the value of that training, and then figure it out through there. But like, yeah, it's really crazy how people get latched on to something that's going to like get them super fit when really the answer is like CrossFit training. It really is. Like, I would love for someone to argue that CrossFit is not the way to train, and people associate it with like all this other bad stuff, but also I think it gets applied inappropriately. And that's why we went over like the 80-20 in the beginning, because you can bring these things down and meet people where they're at. Like Tristan again is saying, N=1. Like this person might need this today, they might need this today, but you don't need to change the movement selection. You just need to change the intensities. And then that's why I asked, like, what things would you guys bring over to somebody or really impart on them of like, you need to continue to do this until you decide, hey, I want to have subpar fitness. Cause that's what I mean, as rough as that sounds, that's what I hear when people are like, oh, I'm just not motivated and I don't want to do this thing, or I'm going to quit one-on-one coaching, or I'm going to quit the gym, or I'm going to do something different. You know what goes off in my mind right away is like, oh, you want to be a subhuman. That's great. Because you have this like really magical thing that if you just stay consistent with it, will continue to change you over the years, over the months. It will impact your life. It'll make you fitter and healthier. You'll stave off chronic disease. You're going to live longer. The quality of your life is going to improve. And I can tell you right now, because I've been in the fitness space, that no other training program will do that. It really won't.
Yeah. But I think like going back
What did
to
he say? Todd just described literally the only reason I still do running workouts. Yeah, you don't want to be a subhuman. There's no such thing as a subhuman. We all have value and we all are equal. And if you are from my world, Jesus loves you. So it's all good. And you still don't want to skip running workouts. Okay. You don't want to skip those.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. And like, I mean, I know Greg said this a lot, but it like CrossFit, the 10 general skills, the more you have them, the more graceful you age, you know? So like the more you have coordination, the less you're going to fall over the older you get. The more strength you have, the less you need someone else to do things for you, the older you get. So, and I think like the fitter you are, the more of a superhero you are compared to everybody else.
Yeah, that's where the subhuman comment came from, realistically.
Yeah.
Way nicer. You said that a way nicer way. I need to work on my delivery.
But going back to like the 80-20 from the very beginning, it's like knowing that CrossFit is the best training method according to us.
Don't say quotes. It is.
Well, I mean,
disprove it. I dare you.
I'm just saying people will agree or not agree with that, I guess.
Yeah, but the truth. There's the
but
what
like
you
knowing
think,
that the reason why people come in and they say, oh, I'm gonna quit, or I can't do this, or I'm gonna try this other program. Like I think the people who've already done it, like they don't have to be convinced that it's the best. It's just too hard. It's too much. It's too much intensity. And so I think that's where our job is coaches is to bring them back to that like 80-20 that we were talking about. Cause it's like, you could still come in. Like we said this last week on the podcast, like I came in and I trained, I did not want to train that day. And it was like, okay, like I'm still going to do it, but I'm going to bring my intensity like way, way, way down and get the work done. And I think that sometimes people like lose sight of that, of like, this is too hard. CrossFit's this, like, I don't have the time. And they start going down the list of like their reasons of why they're not being in there. But it's like, well, we know CrossFit works, but it's like, okay, so then you go over to Planet Fitness and what, like you do like some free weights and then you do some machines.
Well, let's be
there's
real.
nothing wrong
Those
with that. I'm just saying,
off.
but they don't have any direction. I mean, what I loved about CrossFit when I started was I just had to show up. Like I just did what they told me to do and I just showed up. So it's like,
to that point, like what I was thinking as you're saying this is the delivery of CrossFit to Todd mentioned this earlier has, you know, we've probably missed the mark. Certain affiliate owners have missed the mark, and what they're serving their populace is inappropriate for them because that's just blanket recommendations, intensity all the time, etc. People just show up and they do what's on the board. So my question to you, is it more appropriate to have the one-on-one conversations as an affiliate owner or coach, etc., and try to educate them to create balance of their own structure, to find their own balance of 80-20 for the individual and their lifestyle? Because we can't give one-on-one coaching to every single person who walks in the affiliate door. Or do we actually program the gym's programming to have an 80-20 approach?
I think it's both. And it's really like, that's the end all goal. Like what you just described. So like perfect world, we would have coaches that could handle a large amount of people doing one-on-one, and the programming would ebb and flow, and there'd be clear definitives of like, this is an RPE 4 to 6 today. This is an RPE 8 to 9. And I know there are gyms that do that. And I know that there are a lot of gyms evolving and changing too. So like, we might see in the next 5 years that more gyms get education, they start doing this stuff. But like to what you're saying, it's too hard to manage for sure. You got to educate the coaches and, read books like 80-20 and see how that applies to CrossFit. You got to read more education about, it's crazy because you go down a rabbit hole about squatting and start understanding what force is on squatting, because you can increase someone's intensity by taking a 135-pound barbell, having them back squat it, and having them back squat at 4 meters per second versus a meter per second or 8.8 meters per second, because that's like what Westside would talk about. And that's intensity. If you're back squatting at 0.6 meters per second and you're back squatting at 0.8 meters per second, you're moving that bar a lot faster, which is applying more intensity. So you could go down huge rabbit holes, and that education is really tough to get, especially if you have like a part-time coach. But like a lot of full-time coaches like us, we're going to get that education and impart it on you. So I think if you have a gym with a full people of full-time coaches who understand all of these things, you could apply it really effectively and it'd be fucking awesome. The problem is, what Harley's like getting to is like, there's more people than there are us coaches. And I would love for these people and everyone who's listening to this to try and just start asking more questions, and hopefully get this podcast to be something that just like, let's just open the conversation about building an autonomy in your fitness and your training, and having somebody who cares about like, what are the details? I don't need to know everything, but like why am I back squatting? Well, it's good for your legs. It's good for your core. It's a prime movement, squat down, squat up. Why do I go all the way down versus not going all the way down? Like, just start there if that's where you're at. Then like dive deeper and go down the road of, we might do reverse bands. We might do band resisted. Why? To speed up the bar path. Why is speeding up the bar path important? Because you're applying more force. You're accelerating the bar quicker. It translates to explosive power output movements, which here in the Northeast, you may not slip on the ice because your legs are faster. Like, that's crazy how I just made that huge leap. We're going to do bar speed back squats so you don't slip on ice. And that is true. That is a true statement, because you can move your legs faster and catch yourself from a fall. Crazy. And if you're an Olympic sprinter, you're going to increase your bar speed so you can sprint faster.
So what I was alluding to also was that in the affiliate setting, you either build autonomy within the members,
which is tough.
You change the structure of the gym's programming, or you give one-on-one programming, right? Like, those are sort of three options. The one that wasn't said yet was that the variability of people's life and schedule. There are people that come on Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. There are people that come 5 days a week. There are people that come fucking once every 3 weeks.
Just come every day. Okay. We'll solve that right now.
But that would be the ideal, but people don't do that. And so you're going to have someone roll in on the RPE 4 to 6 today, and it's their one workout a week, and they're like, I'm supposed to do this easy.
Well, you could say, hey, man, you here one time, you go RPE 11.
Again, autonomy, right? So what my point is, this is a multifaceted issue. Yep. And I think that there's not necessarily a right, wrong.
This was too good. I mean, you still slip. I'm going to improve your odds. Like slipping on the ice, like you're going to still slip on the ice.
I had that conversation with a lady at Bill's office last week.
Improve your odds. Oh man, that was good. That's my wife, everybody.
So I had that same conversation about slipping on ice last week at CJ's dad's office. This lady was like, you think if you're stronger, you're not going to slip? I was like, no, but I was like, I'm not guaranteeing that, but you have more muscle, you'll bounce better.
That's true. It's a good.
Yeah.
We don't want to get off a tangent because you're on a good spot. So keep going. But well, whatever.
It's
there you go.
Running group class is a multifaceted issue. I think that programming for a few hundred members, if you're in a very large, successful gym, you have a wide variety of people who show up every day to people who hardly ever come, and people who probably forgot they even have a membership. And so you're programming for people. Ideally, you're programming for the people who are coming every day. But I think there has to be a narrative between the coaches, the members, and everyone involved of, hey, what's best for me right now? Because I actually haven't been here in a week. How can I ease back into this? Today's supposed to be a max effort day. Or the contrary, it's like I come twice a week because that's what I can do. That's my fitness, my functional fitness for the week. I do cycling the other 3 days. what should I do today since it's supposed to be a 4 out of 10 day, you know? And I think that on the individual side of things, if you have life come up and you have a remote coach or individualized coach and you're not able to hit a certain session and it was a priority day, like say you're trying to develop that muscle up we talked about earlier and you miss your muscle up day, you might want to send a text and be like, hey, is it more appropriate for me to flip flop these days and still hit my muscle up session for the week? Or should we just like hold off and pull, circle back next week?
That's why one-on-one coaching is superior to group class. And if you have the time, energy, resources, and when I say time, I'm just saying like 4 to 5 days a week, 1 hour a day. You could do more than that depending on what your goals are. And you might have to, depending on the time constraint of like what the event is, depending on high rocks, running, CrossFit, whatever it is. You got to keep that in mind. But yeah, you just pitched why one-on-one coaching.
It's better, but I'm also pitching that it's also a two-way street and the athlete needs to communicate their life circumstances as well.
Yeah. It's too hard in a group class though.
No, I'm saying on the one-on-one side.
Oh yeah. But even then, like you're not going to get that at all in a group class. We do our very best. I talk to a ton of clients and athletes in the gym and I try to do everything I can, but like, they're coming in for an hour a day. They got a general gym membership. It's damn near impossible. Cause I might have a day where I talk to 7 people with like very similar issues. And you're like, dude, there's no way I can help like you guys figure this out. I have to have you come in and do a seminar, like the group of you will do individualized seminars or group class about how to fix this.
How do you feel about workshops and affiliates?
Only if it's adding a value beyond the class that's not able to solve. So for example, the ones that I don't like are going to be like, come to this gymnastics seminar and I'm going to teach you toe to bar. No, that should be taught in class, but if it's like something like we're talking about where it's like, hey, come to the gym for 3 hours and I'm going to explain how to help you navigate your training program better or understand the programming that we do a little bit better or the year program that we do, because we do that once a year and we ask people to come and we could do it more. And that would be a good workshop. Nutrition, because like even in a class, you're not really, you obviously eat real whole foods, meats, vegetables, nuts, seeds, some fruit, little starch, no sugar. That's the best prescription that you could start with at baseline for people. But in a CrossFit class, or class group model, it doesn't have to be CrossFit. You're trying to get somebody fit. So you should be using that time to improve their physical capabilities. And I know nutrition is very helpful with that, but like that's really tough. There's a lot there. So I would recommend, even beyond a seminar, having a one-on-one nutrition coach that you either work with or it's one of the coaches in the gym that takes on one-on-one clients in that way. Because nutrition is a fucking huge thing. It's crazy. So you can have like a little seminar. I'm on the fence with those. I think it's just better to just try and get somebody who does one-on-one nutrition. Any other seminars you can think of? Because those are the ones
those are definitely most common. I think that the issue I face here is that, without control of the program, it's up to, Chase and sometimes Jeff's contributions to write the workouts. And they're on the camp of like, let's give as much fitness, actual like clock time, working time in the hour as possible. And that truly limits development. I think there's bridging the gap between like the beginner level and to the RX level is somewhere that I think a lot of affiliates struggle with. And it's probably due to that diluted delivery of the methodology. And I think that something that we could do better at DTC, but the reality is like, we're trying to give the most in the hour, which I think is a double-edged sword. So I think if the affiliate is in that boat, in that camp, saying that we're trying to like fill up the hour and that there's time there, it actually opens the door for more one-on-one communication and connection. So like personal training, you probably could do small group seminars on weekends if you wanted to add value to skill development sessions, etc. And I don't know if it's inappropriate or not, because it just depends on if it fits with your affiliate model or not, because there are a lot of different styles to the product. But that's not, I'm not trying to rationalize it. I'm just trying to think out loud. That for this type of situation, it may be able to add value, of development.
Yeah, yes and no. I see why that would work. That's a solution with the constraints that you have. But like you're not necessarily you, but like that affiliate in general or training facility is in charge of, the broad program, and they could identify that that's a weakness. And what they could do is curtail it back a little bit and then put that into their class, knowing and being like, what is the value of us teaching people toe to bar? Well, there's a lot of good shoulder health and lat development from swinging on a bar or holding a hollow position on a bar. If that's not a value to them, then it's going to be tough to put that into the training. Because if their value is like fitness first, because like for us, we try to pull a lot back and still put stuff into the training too, to keep people moving and everything else. And we try to balance that as best we can. But that is really tough because yes, you do need to deliver fitness, but also you will be held back by your general population, your group, like your majority of the group, because their inability to do certain things. So then you can't really express a lot of capacity through those people because they're bottlenecked for certain stuff. If that's the case and you're not willing to change the programming, then yeah, I could get on board with someone doing like a toe to bar clinic or something if they feel like there's a value there, or like a weightlifting class or, but that's not even a clinic. Like we started the weightlifting class with Allie, and I want to expand that more as best we can and move it away from the Saturday. So then we can have more people doing CrossFit to get more capacity and health. But having a weightlifting club and having someone like her who's super excited about it and was one of the best in the nation to do it in her weight class, like that's fucking cool. And that creates a lot of synergy and excitement. And like I talked about, you know, people being in the gym and having a good time, that's a value too. But she's really going to change how people move a barbell, which adds to all the things you talked about earlier. And I would say that's more of a specialty class done right versus like a seminar. But you could definitely have like seminar.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking like a one-off thing, not like an every weekend thing.
Yeah.
But like, what if you like picked one per month and essentially we're like, oh, this month we're gonna do snatch. Next month we're gonna do the muscle up. We're gonna do a handstand day in the following month. You know, like completely varying it up. Maybe even taking a poll at the beginning of each month and giving like 3 options. Be like, which one do you guys want? And then we just like make a true like full hour product development like around it. That may be interesting if you actually get involved or get the community involved in the decision making process.
Yeah,
I don't know. That's again just thinking out loud here.
no, I mean that's a good idea. Typically, I'm against it just because I watch some gyms do, and it's like, you know, watching them from Instagram or what they're putting out or their workouts, or like, or I've talked to people and they're not doing a very good job in the gym coaching.
Mm-hmm.
And then they add these seminars. I'm like, well, just do a better job coaching. Like you don't need to.
Yeah,
add
no,
this.
I agree with that for sure.
Yeah. So if that's the case, but if they're doing a great job coaching and people are getting better and there's progression and they're doing all this stuff, and then you start adding these additional things on top, I'm down for it.
Or like if you have a guest speakers come in at those, like that would be really cool. Like say the gym's doing a great job and they're all the members are picking up new skills and stuff and classes are running smooth. And then you like invite, you know, I remember you tried to invite Wes Kitts one time to one of your camps. Like you invite what?
He's too expensive.
Too expensive. Dang it.
That'd have been cool.
Invite Tyler, the coach, to come do a guest talk, you know?
Yeah.
So
he's also super expensive.
Super expensive. He also doesn't talk very much.
I mean, that's the thing. Like we are going to do coming up here, this like short notice mini camp, because we had a couple masters who were going to come out and work on some things and some skill development. And one of them was coming out and they're going to do high rocks. And like Marissa and I are talking about it, and she's going to post about it. If you guys have been listening long enough, you're going to see it. But that camp itself is going to be more geared towards and generated toward like, where are you going with training? How can you optimize your training, styles of training, you know, and just like taking a bigger approach to it. And yes, we'll do some competitive CrossFit stuff and talk about that, but also like, what does this look like for you moving forward? I think that's a big shift for us too, of what does this look like continually doing it? Cause I thought about this for myself personally the other day of like, why have I done this since 2011 as my only mode of training? And I have great, and it's because I'm like aging well. I have great physical capabilities and capacities. Like it, and there's, you know, Heather watched me today. I avoided doing the Echo bike. I haven't done it. I got to move it to another day. But like, it's so painful. And there's days where like Heather makes fun of me because I will procrastinate and hold off doing certain pieces because I know what's to come, you know, but I still end up doing it. And I was wondering like, why I do that. And like, maybe it is habit, maybe it's routine. Maybe it's because I know the value and the efficacy of what we're doing. So that outweighs my disdain to like hurt and suffer for a little bit, or like the challenge of whatever the work is that I have to do. But I want more people to engage in that and think like, okay, well, if this fool over here can do it for the last 15 years or whatever, then I can too. And hopefully like be like, help us. Like you've helped a ton of people. You have no problem doing this every day. How can I manipulate this training program to allow myself to, oh my God, to allow myself to continue to do this over and over and over. Look at this guy. He's Nate's making fun of me because I have skinny legs. Shut up, Nate. Okay, I do. I got tiny little legs, man. All right. You beat me on the workout on Saturday. We get it. I got eclipsed. Okay. It's fine. Anyways.
Which, by the way, was so bad. Thanks, Tyler. That was
so
good. Bad.
Solid.
I literally worked out for 3 minutes and 49 seconds, and I didn't need to do anything the rest of the day.
I mean, you could have, but
I did not want to. I was so messed up for like 2 days.
Yeah. That's okay too. That's a good way to train. But
and when I had Echo Bike today, I still had PTSD from Saturday that I didn't want to do it. And it wasn't even that bad.
Yeah, but I gave you an easy session.
It wasn't that bad.
But I
Thanks,
gave you
Todd.
I gave you an easy session because I value 80-20 training. And I knew that today on the Echo Bike, she needed an easier session just to get her reps in, to get her body moving, to get her mind right on the Echo Bike again and make that relationship, that love for that nice black stallion, you know?
It was bad.
Why is that funny? I'm serious.
Because you're just taking
you get
it. You're riding that
on
train.
the Echo Bike, you get to feel the wind in your hair. You know? Oh yeah. Cody also gets a special treat on his Echo Bike. When the FR cuffs are choking my legs Monday, it was PTSD. Nate had 48 hours of Fran lung. Yeah. Was it worth it?
Facts.
Yeah, I think the approach to training needs to change a little bit, especially in CrossFit, but still using CrossFit.
Yeah.
And I hope people understand what that is and applying the right things of like, I would love to get away from like intended stimulus and range of motion, no rep shit, and like understand what that is, like how we're going to get there to help people get fitter outside of like weird stuff. All right. See, Nate says it was 1,000% worth it. So there you go. That's enough for you to train every day, 4 to 5 times a week. Fuck it, 3 to 5 times a week. Talk to your coach, implement a better structure, ask more questions, be inquisitive about training, be somebody who wants to learn, like deeply learn about it. Don't just tell me like, I want to know the intention. No. I don't have time for you. I want somebody who's like, okay, I want to maximize this because I want to get better at X. That's a way better way to approach a question with someone like me, especially. Be like, I want to get better at back squats. I really need to do this. Here's what I'm struggling with. And I want to know why and how I can get this better. I love that. I'm like, yes, let me help you all day. Let's have this conversation. I love you. Whereas somebody else is like, I want to get better. If you tell me why this is going to make me better and I know the intention, I'm going to really work harder. No, you're not. You don't care. It doesn't matter what the intention is. You know what the intention is? Work your ass off. Let's just go right now. That's the intention. Don't be that person. Be somebody who wants to be really invested in being truly inquisitive about what's going on and share that. And then we can improve your training and maybe bring your intensity down and you'll still get great adaptations.
Low intensity does not mean low effort.
Ooh.
Facts. All right. Well, I got to go. So talk to you guys later.
All right. Well, we'll end it there. I know we rambled a little bit. We got the 80-20 point across, and we're working on some stuff. Again, like and subscribe as always. And if you guys want to try and make it to our camp, you can. We'll be here in Rochester. Hopefully it's not snowing. I mean, actually, you know, I hope it snows. I love the snow. I hate when I sometimes say that.
Same.
It's great. I want all snow all day, every day. I'm going to get canceled over that.
We got snow last night or yesterday.
Nick,
we got like 1.5 inches. No.
Wow.
So I've lived in North Carolina for 37 years, and every December they're like, chance of snow. Literally never happened. I even said it to my dad on Monday night. I'm like, it's not going to happen. Sure enough, 1.5 inches. It was beautiful.
Global warming.
You could have gone